Scott, for those of us that are NASCAR fans, that the finish would have been ideal at Talladega where you'd expected something to happen. For you guys, what can happen those last 2 laps? What were you hoping to happen to possibly make a difference in the standing?
Obviously the only thing you can do is try and push the guy as hard as possible in front of you. Obviously to make him maybe keep looking in his mirrors and overshoot a corner, make a mistake. At a circuit like this where it's very flowy and you rely on the downforce of the car a lot through the high-speed corners, it's very hard to get close. You lose a lot of grip while you're following the car ahead. That's why it got so racy when we caught the back markers and people were trying to make things happen, just before that yellow. So you just got to try and push as hard as possible. It's the same as NASCAR. You got to try and do something, but obviously we have, I think, less opportunities to make something stick, than you do when you're on an oval. The oval racing for us, when it comes down to the end, is totally different as well.
Dario, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Dario, was a concern for you before that last yellow, given your fuel load?
when they told me how far behind he was, and I knew what pace I had to run, I was trying to run as quickly as possible, but there was a certain pace I could run and make the fuel mileage I had to make to get to the end. I expected him to come a lot quicker than he did. And when he got past all the back markers, we both went through some back markers, and then he didn't appear to gain. So I was quite surprised about that. And then the yellow came out, and we could both go 100% to the finish, but that's when the 3 or 4 back markers were holding us up. They held me up through the first 3 corners, so Will got a run into the hairpin here in 5, and we went through the hairpin side by side. So I got pretty close there on the exit. But I think race pace, like I said, we were in pretty good shape.
Scott, it looked like you saved almost all your pushes till the end. What was your strategy on that?
Well, I think it's probably the same for everybody that was on a fuel strategy race, and that's it's for the pure fact that you're trying to save fuel, and if you push the overtake button, you burn a ton more fuel. So there were opportunities when you're out there and you're like, if I could just push the push to pass, it might help you get the momentum to pass somebody, but obviously it kills the fuel mileage by a tenth or a couple of tenths, and it's hard to get that back. So fuel mileage race, the push to pass you can't really use, and we wouldn't have been able to use it until we had that yellow at the end.
Does that mean that when you get down to fuel mileage race, it pretty much negates the potential to push the pass?
Yeah. It brings in another kind of racing. Obviously, as Dario was telling everybody about the driving style and the way to get fuel mileage out of the car now, because we have no mixture. We don't have a mixture knob anymore to change it, and the car and the engine do it for you. Now you have to do it, obviously lifting off and rolling into a corner and things like that. So it's definitely a whole different technique, and you can make a difference yourself, like the push to pass does. I was at every corner at the end.
So if they made this like a 100-lap race where you'd have to do 3 stops, then would it just be as fast as you can go and use the push to pass? Would that change things?
Well, that or you make it 80 laps. It can go either way. Aggressively to run towards the end, a 90-lap race is hard either side. Either you do it 3 or you do it 2, and it's hard to get that, and I think you saw the people saving fuel obviously at the pointy end of the field was because that's the way the strategy worked out. If the yellow hadn't fallen when it did, it might have been a different scenario at the end.
Yeah, I think if they made a couple of changes to the track, they just need to make a couple of small changes, I think, to promote some passing, and then they'll have a spectacular place. That will be a big help, I think.
What kind of change?
As Scott said, it's got a lovely flow in nature, this track, which is great, a lot of fun to drive, but limits passing. So maybe extend one of the straights or take one of the flowing bits out and put a good heavy straight braking zone. I guess just make a passing opportunity, and then we'll be in good shape. And as I say, then it'll be spectacular. I mean, to be here today and to see the crowd. Did you see that crowd? It was bloody amazing. That was pretty cool.
Any thoughts on Marco's drive? I mean, he pretty much had set the pace most of the race, so was it kind of a situation there where you knew he was kind of dead in the water if he didn't get another yellow?
one of his restarts, he passed Elio. He was pushing hard, and I thought he drove a great race. But there's obviously that penalty to pay. If you want to go a little quicker, you're going to use more fuel. You don't make the end. I think we all could have run, a second quicker. I don't know, maybe more, without saving fuel. But that unfortunately is a penalty you pay. But I thought he did a bloody good job all day.
He did, it's hard to push these cars, and especially on the restarts, he definitely made the emphasis on getting past people. And on a track so difficult to pass, he did a great job. And to be honest, I'm sure he had tons of people yelling on him, trying to make him save fuel. For him to not make really any mistakes that I saw with Elio all in his mirrors, he did a hell of a job too.
Can you talk a little bit more about the fan turnout and compare this experience coming here as opposed to other tracks you go to?
I think you could see it from the get-go. When we had the first open test here, I think we had over 10,000 people. We get about 2 or 3 normally to a test. Obviously the open test, we get a few more on weekends, but when we test privately, you could probably count 2 or 3 people.
Nobody's really allowed to be there when we test privately.
Well, that's true, But just to see that they had the enthusiasm to come out, and today I went over to the back section to do a thing for Firestone, and over on the fan part over there it was packed. It was fantastic to see. I think the whole the liveliness, to be honest, in the pits before the race and everybody getting ready to go. You could hardly walk through there. You couldn't drive your scooter through there. So it's not too many races that we go to that it's like that at this point in time. It has been in the past, but it was a big day, I think, for Alabama, and obviously for all of us. We love to see it. It was fantastic.
Look out the window there. There's a crowd just trying to get out of the place. It's a massive crowd. The enthusiasm was there. So we've seen that last couple since I came back with the Unified Series and stuff, and with IZOD coming on as a title sponsor, we've got this momentum going. We look at the car count for Indy and stuff like that as well. But we have 25 here. In Indy, they're talking about 40.
30 at Kansas. So.
That's pretty cool. It's, in this economy, it's looking pretty good.
You definitely have to give credit to IZOD. I think it's the first time that you see constantly ads on TV, and they're pushing the race, they're pushing it in different markets, they're getting the drivers out there. It's good to have a title sponsor and someone that's really making a good effort at it.
Dario, I think this is a little different way than you left your last race in Alabama, right? And would you can kind of compare the two environments from Talladega and here?
It's very, very different. The one thing that's a common is the enthusiasm of the crowd. I did the nationwide race in Talladega and got a blown tire, and I broke my ankle, so I left there in an ambulance. And when we tested here in the open test, we had a bit of a crash, and I'm sitting there in the medical center, and the doctor's looking me over, and he said, "Do you recognize me?" No. He said, "I was the guy that looked after you after your Talladega crash." God. So it's much more fun to leave this way.
But you didn't see party crowd either.
What?
Probably didn't see party crowd
A couple?
We'll wrap things up. Scott, Dario, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming in.
All right, thanks,
Congratulations on
everybody.
the podium.